I suppose the culturally appropriate way to start this video would be to say viewer discretion advised. I'm going to talk about death. This is a subject that, at least in the West, um, is mostly avoided. The subject of death, the fact of death, has inspired fear and dread. It's inspired religions, philosophies, art, literature. This is one of the, if not the most important fact of life that most people try to spend their whole life not thinking about. You know, which is sort of an odd thing. I guess what it comes down to is fear. Because we don't know what's going to happen. And I think that it's important to psychologically prepare yourself for that. Because, for one, it will probably be the most traumatic experience ever, right? I mean, a lot of you may think that nothing happens after, or you all may have various beliefs about what happens after. But even just accepting it, building up so you can kind of mourn and embrace your life that you're leaving behind. If you look at it from a spiritual context, you want to prepare yourself for whatever is happening. And that doesn't mean this sort of oversimplified narrative of heaven and hell, but it's important to be conscious, because that maybe allows you a chance to be aware of what's happening. A lot of times death is compared to sleep. So sort of like lucid dreaming versus you don't remember your dreams. You know, there's a meditation. I think it's a Buddhist meditation. I could be wrong, but it's a meditation where you would visualize your death in a very vivid way, all the way down to your body decaying and returning to the earth. Because this is what will happen. Your organs will shut down, you will cease to breathe, your body will run cold. And the essence of you, the spirit, the soul, or what have you, the energy, will leave this physical frame. And the fact is also, energy doesn't die. It changes, it transforms. So what comes of us? And if this is, I think that these are the deeper questions that people have had for however long, since always. And it's important that we embrace the idea of death, because the fact is life does not exist without death. Everything has an ending and a beginning. There's always a sacrifice made. What we eat, drink, what we nourish ourselves with comes from death, even if it's down to just the microorganisms or whatever. So really, be it vegetarian, be it not, it involves death. This video started somewhere and it will end somewhere. I'm not sure where. But, this is something I've been looking at myself. Like, not only really what happens after death, although, of course, that's an obvious thing that's going to come to mind, even if it is nothing or whatever, which I think there's probably something, right? In some form or fashion. But really considering that fact that is going to happen one day, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to accept in a lot of ways, though in theory, perhaps it's happened before and before and before. And so also that brings you back to the question of life and how you're spending your time, what you find meaning in, how do you treat your family, your friends, yourself? Does it matter to leave something behind or does it not? As far as, say, people look to legacies or creating great art or contributing to whatever. Where do you find significance? And when I really look at it from that perspective, this is just me personally, and I don't even necessarily like that I see it this way. It almost makes everything feel void of meaning. Why contribute to a world that is going to end? I'm not saying that I'm correct in that. I'm just saying, like, that's where my mind sort of immediately goes. And again, so that's why I've, like I said, I've been contemplating all this. And experiencing the death of someone else is a whole other subject, which may, I don't know. I'm not really sure where I was going with this, to be completely honest. It's been so present on my mind that I just wanted to make something. And I guess that's there's sort of the answer in itself, I guess, of the point of pursuing anything in this world. It's like this sort of profound need to express our inner world, and that process of creation has meaning in itself. It's sort of what we naturally do or are inclined to do. And that can be everything from a painting to writing to just talking. And so there's also the idea, again, psychologically preparing for death. This is an idea that I think is probably the most likely scenario. And it's something that I've been sort of considering a lot and listening to lectures on death and all this stuff. And that is that basically where your mind is at the moment of death is sort of what rings out through time, right? Like that is sort of your formation of heaven and hell, so to speak. Um, because the fact is like most people are not prepared to die. Um, Again, we avoid looking at it. Um, and so you're going to, if you're not prepared, right? Whether you believe you go on energetically or not, right? If you're not psychologically prepared for that reality, it's going to be such a terrifying experience the moment you realize that your body is no longer going to work. Um, Most people die from some kind of, trauma or illness or something terrible. It's usually not a pleasant experience most of the time. Or they're left to medical facilities to spend the rest of their life, and when they're older, and that takes its toll psychologically as well, I'm sure. And that's really something that's, um, in my opinion, really a bigger cultural issue than we like to think. Anyway, and if we're more comfortable with the idea of death, the fact of death, we will better be able to serve those experiencing grief or experiencing near death. Um, we'll be able to show up as a proper support rather than, say, an emotional wreck or completely avoidant emotionally. We'll better understand life if we allow ourselves to face death. So I think I'm gonna end this here. Um, I don't know. Fucking deal with it. That's the video. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it, and so I did.